Thank you, Mark. About a year ago now, we had a conversation about what we should do when we gather together for our annual Colloquium on Catholic Studies. And this topic, for all the reasons Mark just explained, is why we felt it so worthwhile. So tonight, the goal is to have a talk from a high-level business executive, and then also a talk from just a lowly Fulbright scholar. And we're going to enter in for a moment tonight to set us off and to set the tone for what we hope to achieve tomorrow. Hopefully a new way of looking at work. A way of looking at work that is not only radically effective and radically meaningful, but is also deeply situated in the drama of what it means to be human and what it means to be in relationship with the world around us. So thank you all for coming tonight. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, who's going to talk about transcendental leadership, the role of virtue, the role of the deeper questions in life, and how it helps us to effectively enter into both business and commerce. Dr. Nick Markette graduated summa cum laude from Arizona State University with a Bachelor of Science in Finance. Dr. Markette then attended Grand Canyon University, where he earned a Master of Science. Now as an inductee of the GCU Alumni Hall of Fame. I didn't even realize that until now. He earned his doctorate, where he published his dissertation on the structure and conditions of high-performance teams. His research serves as the basis for his frequent speaking engagements at symposia, colloquia like this one, workshops and conferences, including lectures for the Society of Research Administrators International, Court-appointed Special Advocate Association, St. Joseph Hospital and Medical Center, and a host of others. He has over 30 years of experience in finance and management, with experience as Executive Vice President of a financial services firm, as well as Chairman, Director, and Chairman of the Compensation Committee for a publicly traded company. Dr. Markette currently teaches in the College of Business and the College of Doctoral Studies at Grand Canyon University. As well, he teaches and helps direct a program for Concordia University. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Nick Markette.
Well, I've never been on the stage. It's not really a stage. It still feels like an altar to me. But I've never been on a stage with a Fulbright scholar before, so I'm sure I'll make him look good. It's interesting hearing Mark talk about commerce, and I thought, wow, that just starts a whole other train in my mind, and that is, what? We invented hospitals. We invented schools. We invented orphanages. I mean, we rocked the marketplace, but that's a whole other talk. So my whole specialty in research is organizational science. How do you take humans, put them together as a group, and increase the likelihood that they will be successful? And my theoretical construct is that structures precede outcomes. And that's actually English. But I married a woman that loves theological symposia, colloquia, and things of that nature. And that's really affected my thinking. Because the more research you do, the more you realize that you're really not uncovering anything except for something that's already been there. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. And so a couple years ago, maybe I was a little proud of myself, and I spoke at this colloquium, and I said, servant leadership, which is all the buzz, now, I said, that's not a leadership style. It's a philosophy. And the true servant leader uses transactional ideas and transformational ideas and situational leadership ideas as an artisan would use the tools out of their toolbox. And I was feeling pretty good about that. And then my wife brought me, and I was excited to go to this presentation on a Friday night after a long week of work. And, excited to hear a woman speak by the name of Barbara Nicolosi. And Barbara Nicolosi speaks about the transcendentals and about beauty. And as she spoke, all the research and all my experience as someone who's led a publicly traded company, been CEO, been the chief financial officer of a company, and done research, started soaking in. I'm like, wait a minute. If servant leadership is above all these other leadership models, the transcendentals are actually above that. And what's crazy is the more I look and the more I meditate on, the more I research, I realize our church has actually laid out a blueprint for the right kind of leadership for thousands of years. They actually built on ideas, that Plato, introduced. And here we are, as researchers, thinking we're coming up with something new. So what I'm going to really share with you tonight is actually something old. So the Newman Center says, or the Newman Society, says that transcendentals are our path to our full potential, to not only be good, but to do good. And if you think about that, that's really our charge as leaders. It's not just be good, but to do good. So the transcendentals are this idea of truth, goodness, and beauty. And my argument for you tonight is that these truths, that goodness and that beauty, should be our challenge as leaders, or even if we're not leaders, is to become leaders in that light. So when I learned about this truth, and of course I'm learning the transcendentals like new, I'm pretty sure in this room there's one person that hasn't had a theology or religion class, and it's me. So if I butcher this, those of you who are much smarter than I in this area, you'll have to forgive me. But as I meditated on what was true, I reflected on my experience years ago. So my late wife, who I lost to cancer, I lost her dog also. It was a bad time, and my daughter at the time convinced me, you need to get her a dog. So as we shopped for dogs, my criteria is I wanted one with floppy ears. So we got Lucy the chocolate lab. Very quickly, I realized that my house was going to be a pile of rubble because she was systematically at 10 pounds going to chew our house down into rubble. So I asked around, and somebody said, you know, hired this guy named Gary. He's the best dog trainer in the valley. So I call him, ask him, and he's like, well, $550, I'm sure I can solve your problem. I'm like, $550? You better be like magic. So he comes in, he walks in, I'm like, there she is, do your thing. And he said, no, let's sit down and talk first. And it was fascinating. He said, you know, the first thing you need to know is that you're always training your dog. Whether you think it or not, you're always training your dog. The next thing that you need to know is your dog always has to feel safe with you. The next thing you need to know is if your dog makes a mistake, it's your responsibility. Bite your neighbor, your responsibility. Choose your carpet, your responsibility. The next thing that you need to know is that if your dog does what you want, you have to praise it. And if it doesn't do what you want, you have to correct it. Now I thought about this, and he gave me homework to work with the dog, and he'd be back in a week. I thought, oh, I have my doctorate in this, and my master's in this, and I've run major corporations. I could have saved a lot of grief, because everything I needed to know that was true about leadership, my dog trainer just dropped on my head. So what is that truth? You're always leading your people. Your people always need to feel safe with you. If your people make mistakes as a leader, it's your responsibility. And your people do what you want them to do, they do the right things, praise them. And if they don't do what you want, correct them. Don't reprimand them, don't yell at them, correct them. And I sat and I thought of it. And then this washes back up as Barbara Nicolosi's talking about truth. Like, wow, the dog trainer knew this. The church knew this. And I needed to spend thousands of dollars and go to the 27th grade to discover what was already there. The next aspect of transcendentals is goodness. And as she talked about that which was truly good, you know, I couldn't help but reflect back on my own career. And so some of you don't remember this, but in 2000 there was a thing called the dotcom bust. And I was an investment banker and had been put in as the interim CEO of a software company to turn it around. And we're working hard and trying not to lay off people and do the honorable thing. And my marketing manager comes into me, and it's crazy too, just a side note. He's a Catholic school, high school grad, now that I think about it. He says, I've saved the company. I've got a client coming in. This woman's business needs exactly what we do. It'll be worth about $800,000 to $900,000 a month in gross profit. This is our solution. I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. He goes, 2 o'clock in the boardroom, can you be there? I'm like, absolutely. And he mentioned the woman's business. It meant nothing to me. And we sit down in the boardroom, and this woman, kind of attractive, but kind of hard looking, severe looking, with a couple attorneys come in and sit down, and they introduce her, and I won't say her name, and they start laying out this business proposition. And basically, our software would help them launch their current already profitable pornography kind of like kingdom thing that they have going on and make it go worldwide. And I'm watching this, and I'll be authentic with you. Like, this solves everything. And then pictures of my wife and my daughter and my mother wash into my mind. I'm like, hey, we wish you well, but this is not business we'll do. So I leave the boardroom and go to my office. My marketing manager comes in and he's fuming at me. And employees are, soon get out, what the choice I've made. And they're afraid for their jobs and supporting their families, of course. And I'd like to tell you that it just then from then it was just magic. God came down and put fairy dust on me. But that's not true. I ended up getting sued 21 times by shareholders by not being an appropriate fiduciary agent for their interests because of this. Has anybody been deposed? Not fun. Anybody been on trial? Not fun. But I chose what was good. And out of by choosing what was good, the blessings that came and the way out of that solution fell into place. It wasn't painless. One of my favorite poems is San Juan de la Cruz's Dark Night of the Soul. I experienced that. But it came out. And the epiphany that I had, as Barbara Nicolosi taught this, and I meditated and I thought about my own life, is if we have leaders that seek that which is good, then we'll have organizations that people want to give themselves to. We hear about millennials. They don't put themselves out for other organizations. Well, they don't subjugate themselves for other organizations because they don't see the goodness. If they believe in it, they'll put stuff in 5 different garbage cans because they believe a banana peel goes in this garbage can and plastic goes in this one if they believe in it. But if you show them as leaders that which is good, they'll believe in it. The next transcendental is beauty. And, I was thinking about this talk, and every once in a while my wife and I will go out to kind of a nice dinner, and we went to a pretty nice steakhouse the other night. And for me, I'm an organizational scientist. I run businesses, so the whole world is always my petri dish. I'm calculating how many people are here, how many are they paying, how many employees, how much does this cost, and my head just does this. My wife thinks it's a sickness, but I think it's a blessing. But I watched over, and it was interesting. There was maybe a 16, 17-year-old busboy, and he was setting the table. And this is a pretty pricey place. And he was measuring with his thumb where the napkin was, and then he went to the other side of the table. And then he lined it up, and he was making sure, and he was completely focused, putting his heart and soul of a 16-year-old into this very honorable work to create a dining experience for the people that were coming in. And I was thinking about this talk on Saturday night. I thought, that's beautiful. Honorable work done as if you're doing it for God is beautiful. And I reflected also, every morning, I'm kind of the weird guy at Starbucks at 5:30 in the morning, does his morning prayer there over his dark roast, clears his email and starts reading research, right? Like the normal guy. And but again, everything's my petri dish, and I'm watching how Starbucks works and who does what role. And this was the day that I had the free one, right? If you get 125 stars, you get the free one. And my Starbucks has a clover. If you've not had a coffee made with a clover, you've seriously missed out on coffee. It needs to be a reserve Starbucks, which God bless me, right? Proof that God loves me because he put a reserve Starbucks by my house. And so I'm standing there because I like to watch it make as it vacuums the water through the coffee grounds. And I see the woman at the window who's probably making minimum wage or slightly more reach out and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," hold her arm and say, "Can I pray for you?" It's like, wow. Minimum wage, serving coffee, but doing work that was just beautiful. And I think we've lost sight of that honorable, honest work done, as if we're doing it for God is a thing of beauty. A couple years ago, my wife said, "We have this bathtub and a phone booth shower. When was the last time you took a bath?" I said, "Once I stood in the bathtub and dried off so I wouldn't drip on the floor and slipped and fell in it, and that's the only time I've been in it." She goes, "I think it's time to redo it because brass faucets are not so in anymore." I don't know if you knew that or not, but they're not. And so we hired Artie the plumber to come in and redo our shower and dual heads and kung fu sprinklers and all kinds of stuff. 2 benches and white subway tile. Am I getting it right? And so as Artie comes in, the plumber, to convert this new hole in our bathroom into this, I found myself not getting anything done for the time he was working because he was moving copper around and, had the welding stuff going, and I'm so bad with that stuff. I have guys and a cell phone to fix stuff. And then he's framing stuff with wood and putting glass in, and I was just mesmerized that he was measuring everything. And there is no denying it that what he did was beautiful. And I think this is also something that we've lost in society. Work is not something we just trade for money. Artie the plumber wasn't doing it just for the money. I'm sure he wouldn't have done it for free, but he was doing it with pride. He probably didn't even know that it was printed on his heart to do it as if he was doing it for God. But I couldn't miss the fact that it was beautiful. So what does this whole transcendental leadership idea have for you? In other words, so what? I tell my research students that anytime you tell me something, that I have the right to say, well, so what? What do I do with that? So what? So what do you do with this tomorrow? And we're all in different places, right? We have some people have my dashing haircut in back. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. And I see other people have really cool hair, like in the front here. So, and there's all of these ages. So what do we do with this tomorrow? Well, here's my challenge for you to think about. Here's my invitation for you to think about. If you went back to the time when you worked for someone, or you still work for someone, and you knew that you were going to work for someone that was looking at you and they were searching for the way to find the truth and the goodness and the beauty in what you did, and to affect your life with truth, goodness, and beauty, would that be a better place to work? Would you want to work there, and maybe even work there for a little less money? I listened to Mark's story and I thought to myself, a guy that worked for you is now ordained as a deacon or a priest. You did something right. You may not be directly responsible, but you set an environment that somehow was based in that truth, goodness and beauty. Well, I think the answer is we'd all want to work for that place. So if that invitation is accepted that, yeah, we'd want to work for that place, well, then what comes from that is the challenge. That in whatever you do, you should do it focusing on truth, goodness, and beauty. Because if you're not doing that, then you're really not living as our church wants you to live and wants you to lead. So I'll leave you with one story to think about. A few years ago, leaving soccer practice, I've also coached competitive soccer for 28 years. I coach a boys' high school team and a girls' club team this year, 18-year-old girls and high school boys. And I'm leaving my boys' practice a few years ago. The phone rings, hello, and he's like, hey, coach, it's Zach. I'm like, wow, I haven't talked to you in 5 years. He's a Marine, and I'm like, Zach, what's going on? He said, oh, not much, He goes, oh, how's your soccer team? Good. How's your family? Good. Well, if you know boys, they don't make small talk. So I'm like, Zach, what's going on, man? He's like, my girlfriend's pregnant, I don't know what to do. I'm like, He said, well, why don't we tell your parents? I know your parents, they're good people. He said, oh, I can't tell my parents. Well, I'm blessed because I'm on the board for Aid to Women Medical Center, which deals with these type of situations. They're the best. And I said, Zach, here's what we should do. Let's get you and your girlfriend an appointment at Aid to Women. Let's first make sure she's healthy and everything's good there, and they can really help you with some direction on what to do. He's like, all right, thanks. Can we meet for coffee? So we meet for coffee. I get him the courage to go to Aid to Women. And so I call him. I said, well, what happened? He goes, they convinced me to talk to my parents. In the last 3 years, what I've seen are so many pictures of that little boy on his father's Facebook page that they love this kid. They welcome this kid. But how beautiful is it that he went to a group of people that work based in truth and goodness and ultimately beauty every day. So I just got this. So in 4 weeks, we're going to this wedding. Zach's marrying the girl. And I can't help but reflect on the truth, goodness, and beauty of what the Women Center does. But then in coaching these boys all these years, and trying to speak truth into them when the world is telling them these lies over and over again. And so thanks to my wife, who's introduced me to my faith that I believe, but now I start to understand, I see that, what we're left with is an invitation and a challenge as workers, as people in the marketplace, as leaders, is to embrace this idea of transcendental leadership, to look at the truth, goodness, and beauty wherever we are. So those are my thoughts. This is the first time I've ever addressed this in public. So hopefully it blesses you, and hopefully it sets on your heart, and that tomorrow you're thinking about looking for those transcendentals. Thank you.
This has happened twice now, Nick. I've invited you to speak, and then after you give your talk, I realize the error of my ways, which is you give something immediately practical, and now us majors in humanities are going to come next.